and welcome to Michigan Theater and Film Talk. I am your host, Jeff Tamakis, and this is Michigan Theater and Film Talk, of course, which asks the eternal question, what is the Michigan actor? We are dedicated to highlighting Michigan theater and film professionals all over the state, and today my guest is Dennis North, the great and talented Dennis North. And before we begin, I do want to remind everyone that we are available on Apple and Android podcasts. Just search for Michigan Theater and Film Talk, and you should be able to find us and subscribe. Also, we are on YouTube at Michigan Checkoff. Please like and subscribe right now. And go to our Facebook page as well. We're available on Facebook. If you go to our page, which is Michigan Michael Checkoff Classes -M2C2, and like that page, you will be the first to be notified of videos just like this. And my guest today is Mr. Dennis North, the great and talented Dennis North. And Dennis, thank you for having me here. I am on the stage of the, what is the Smith Theater?
Smith Theater,
the Smith
Community College.
At Oakland Community College, the Orchard Lake campus, or Orchard Ridge campus.
Orchard Ridge.
And I got to say, this is a beautiful space, and I'm so grateful that you invited me to come here and use this space rather than what I've been using, my living room.
Blessed to have you.
So, the first question, of course, is how you got into the industry, Dennis?
Like everybody else, early on, I started in high school, like we were discussing a while ago, kind of on a dare with high school. Mm-hmm. Basically, I had gone all the way through my freshman, sophomore year. I was always an art student, but at the end of that, got in on stage, found that I loved it, but had a full ride scholarship in Indiana for art school, illustration and printmaking. So that's what I was going to be doing, was going to be a full-time artist at that point. 2 years into the scholarship.
So you had a scholarship to go to
yeah,
school?
So it was a free ride, and it was great. I loved it. The art aspect has always been, ever since I was a kid, and there's an aspect of putting thought on paper, putting thought on canvas, putting thought on stage. It's all the same thing. It's that creative act. And ever since I was a kid, like most of us, there's an aspect of wanting to create. Sidebar if you want it. My dad was a Methodist minister, right?
Okay.
So when I was growing up, I remember I had to be like 6, 7 years old, something like that, waking up in the middle of the night in tears, going to my dad's bedroom, waking him up, and he's going, "What's the problem? Why are you crying?" I said, "I don't want to be a missionary." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, you're a pastor. I have to be a missionary. I don't want to be a missionary." And he goes, "What do you want to be?" And I said, "I don't know. I want to be some kind of an artist."
At 6 or 7 years old?
At 6 or 7. My
Wow.
dad said, "Don't you think God put that desire in your heart?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Okay, go back to bed." So there's
what a great answer.
I know, right? I love that about my
It wasn't
father.
like, get out of my house.
Not even a little bit, I love that. It's like, what do you feel like you were drawn to do? Mm-hmm. And that's what, that desire in your heart was put there, and follow through. And I think most artists that I respect, especially actors that I respect, have that desire. And you know this, man, it's more than a desire. It's whether it's a calling, whatever it is. And I'm afraid to get into actor speak, but I know the audience is there. You know that when you walk onto a stage for the first time, and it feels like home, you
Mm-hmm.
kind of go, that's what it is, which is what absolutely I experienced in college. 2 years into the art scholarship, feeling like there was something missing, and again, talking to people, and on a dare, again, where people said, "Well, you should do this," and it's like, okay. So I made an appointment with the director of the theater program at the time, and it was Pitt Theater, New Indiana Theater, small college in Fort Wayne, but a great black box theater space, just a great space. Mm-hmm. So I set up an appointment, and I met with the head of the department, who, for the next 4, 5, 6 years after that, became my mentor. And I loved this guy to death. He was He was that director that, and I think we all have people in our lives that kind of instill certain things, and Larry was one of those guys that instilled that, again, for want of a better term, that priest-like quality as to what we do as actors, and what we do as artists. The fact that what we do is important because it's something bigger than us, something beyond us, and it's something that truly can make a difference in people's lives. And there, again, there's not a day, especially when I'm directing, I rarely pass through a day where I don't find something that's Larry's words coming through. That I will have said something or phrased it in a way or went, oh my gosh, that's channeling Larry at this point. But there's something about that great continuum. So about 2 years into the art school, on a dare, again, I met with him. He said, come out and audition.
So I keep thinking that somebody was like, I dare you to do theater, like you were in front of the theater and somebody was like, I dare you.
Basically, it was friends, but it was also that need to do something.
Mm-hmm.
So
did they have any idea of your talent or like your aptitude for theater at the time, or what was their intent behind like daring you to
probably because it was just there was a desire and something that was missing,
And they recognized that in you?
Yeah, I'm giving them a lot of credit. It wasn't that altruistic. I mean, basically, it was friends that were. It's like put up or shut up. It's like if you want to be there, go do that thing.
So you were like wistfully looking at the theater and going,
I wish I was still doing that. Yeah.
Wow.
So it was one of those things where, and again, I just thought I'm going to go, I'm going to do a show, I'll be done with it, it'll be fantastic, and it'll be over with.
Uh-huh.
So I meet with Larry, and he says, yeah, I would love for you to come out and audition. So I got cast, chorus stuff to begin with, ended up spending so much time at the theater that I ended up losing my scholarship to art school. But again, at that point, it doesn't matter. You look at it, and what I was saying earlier about finding a place that feels like home. And that pit theater, that small black box theater became home. And now it's one of those things where I think for a lot of people, for a lot of us, you walk into any kind of space, and it doesn't matter what it is. We appreciate the size of the theater, we appreciate the technology involved with it, we appreciate everything, but basically it still comes down to, two boards and a passion. You walk in, you look at it, you recognize it as home. May not be your home at that point, but there's still that feeling that you're home.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what theater you walk into.
Yeah, for me, whenever I walk into a theater,
Yeah, right.
there's the director aspect and the teacher aspect, and the first thing I do is I look at all the lights and I count all the lights. I'm like, okay, so this is what we can do. But then there's then there's the me,
Yeah.
That heart,
Yeah.
and I just feel more alive walking into a theater.
Oh, yeah.
So you lost your scholarship because you loved theater so much, and you found a mentor who changed your life.
Yeah.
Which is often the way it goes. So, theater teachers are the most special people on the planet.
The good ones are.
Yeah.
And we've all had some really awful ones along the way.
Sure.
That were into it for whatever reason other than... There's something about it, and we talk about it in our classes all the time, there's something about respecting the work. If you respect the work, if you truly give yourself over to something bigger, it will respect you back. It may not always employ you, it's not always going to pay the bills for you, but it will respect you back. Mm-hmm. But you've got to see it as something bigger than you. And I've had instructors along the way, Larry in particular, being the pinnacle of that, who forced, because he was so demanding on what he wanted to accomplish. And some people would look at that and go, oh, the guy was just, full of himself, whatever it was. And it was like, it never was that. This was a guy, and this was, late 70s. This was a guy who was openly gay, living in the middle of an Indiana town, which was a metropolitan, but still.
It's Indiana.
It was Indiana. It was the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
They accepted him because he produced great stuff, but didn't completely accept him. But what he found was in the theater, he found a home and he found a voice that could be used. And he was one of those guys, like a lot of people, that went to New York for a while, had a career for a little bit, then came back and found a home that was truly his home in that area of, in that area of sensibility in the Bible Belt, in that area of Midwest work ethic, all the other stuff. But it was not metropolitan at the time. I mean, it was a big city, but it wasn't metropolitan. And Larry was one of those guys that would force the issue with the material that he put on stage. And it was fantastic. I mean, it was part of this guerrilla theater kind of movement. I remember doing a production of Bent, which was basically, I mean, it's a hard show, and it came back.
Oh, yeah.
Great show, about Nazi internment of homosexuals and intellectuals. And we actually had people break into the stage at the time and paint swastikas on the stage. A couple of us got, I mean, it sounds stupid, but got death threats for.
Wait a minute. Let's back
go
up.
ahead.
Let's back up, because you're about to just go out and say, oh yeah, somebody broke into your theater and painted swastikas on the stage during the run?
Yeah.
How was that taken?
For us as actors, this is going to sound strange. I was never afraid. I was always. I looked at it like we must be accomplishing something if somebody's going to go to that drastic a measure to go the other way. We must be pushing all the right buttons. So, I look at it and I'm going, I'm a young, stupid actor at that point. I'm going, oh, this is fantastic. This is so great.
My life's in danger.
I'm getting death threats. This is great. I look at it now and I would look at it completely differently. So, police were involved. Nothing ever happened of it other than somebody made their statement while we were making our statement. But again, that's what I mean about, here's a guy that within his world looked at it and said, I can change my corner of the world. I can absolutely make a difference by being true to what I believe art is about. I can find a voice. And I think for a lot of theater artists, for whatever reason, we find our voice in somebody else's voice. We find our voice in great material. We find our voice in material that is scary. And I really am. I'm a big believer in if you're not taking a risk and if it's not dangerous, why are you doing it?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting the things that you're bringing up already, in that, Bent in New York, Bent in LA isn't going to get. Well, it might. It's still. Racist, horrible people are everywhere, but I feel like that town needed Bent, in a way that New York or LA or even Chicago didn't, and that's what's so amazing about doing theater in the Midwest and doing theater where people need to see theater, where theater actually has an impact.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. And I think we walk a fine line with it. I really do. There's aspects of running a theater where you know that it's got to be about entertainment. And absolutely nothing wrong with that, Any legit theater that wants to stay in business, that there is a percentage of your season that's got to be pure entertainment. And if you can make your nut on that, if you can make enough to support the other stuff, which is the challenging stuff, because there's a need to hear it, there's a need to produce it, there's a need to put these actors on the stage. If you can find that balance, fantastic. Since the beginning of theater, it's been in danger of going under. Since cavemen sat around the fire, and started talking about it, theater's always been on the chopping block, and yet we survived.
Yeah, Thespis was like, I don't know if I'm going to be employed next year.
Don't cash the check yet, But there's an aspect of continually bringing people in that need to be there on stage, and continually bringing people in that need to be there in the seats to witness it. So back to that production of Ben. I mean, I will use that in class occasionally, just when we talk about design, because that was Larry's concept for the design. Small black box, we actually added a second level for audience, very rough-hewn wood kind of deal, and then barbed wire on top of that, because he wanted the audience to be witnesses to the event, not just to sit in the audience and watch a play.
Mm-hmm.
So conceptually, metaphorically, and realistically, we were able to pull that off.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this big gestalt kind of, I mean, it's a shock to the system coming into it, but that's what Larry preached, and tends to be, for me, you know, in so many ways, what attracts me the most about material.
Mm-hmm.
You know, does it have value in the sense that that not only is it entertaining and not only is it great literature, but does it have a voice? Does it make you walk away confused? Does it make you walk away? Even the word enlightened, I'm not a fan of the word enlightened because I think we throw it around too much. But do you walk away seeing the world differently? And I mean, this is something that we say in class, or I mean, I say in my classes all the time, that theater basically is, it's a picture that turns into a mirror that turns into a window.
Oh, that's great.
Well, you put the picture on stage, right? And this is what the audience sees. And if the actors and the staff and production and designers are doing their job, it turns into a mirror where they get to sit and reflect on themselves, right? Then if we're really doing our job, it turns into a window where all of a sudden you see a world that's much bigger than the one that you walked into to begin with. So that's kind of the way. And I give most, if there's credit to be given philosophically, you know, I would give that to my mentor.
Wow.
I would give that to Larry. That was the biggest push, was seeing a world that I did not know existed.
Wow. So that's an amazing story. And Larry sounded like an amazing mentor
He
for
was.
you. And you were in Indiana. Mm-hmm. You were raised in Indiana?
Actually, I grew up in California. I was a kid in Los Angeles
Okay.
until I was 13. And we moved from the county of Los Angeles to a farm in Indiana because that's where my folks were from, and ended up being the best thing.
Why were they in California?
My dad had a church there.
Oh, okay.
So,
all right. So you got
work had taken him there all over. We traveled around quite a bit and stayed for quite a bit. Moved back to Indiana. Again, kind of pursued the artistic aspects of it. Great art school, great theater. From Indiana, I got to Detroit by auditioning for the Hillberry Theater.
okay.
So that was early 80s, and so the scholarship that I lost with art school came back around with grad school.
Yeah, and the Hillberry is famously generous with their scholarships. At least they were. I don't know if they
I
still
don't know
are.
what it is now, but yeah.
But they were, I felt like when I went to the Hillberry
Yeah, I know.
much later than you went to the Hillberry. Not that I'm calling you old.
Ow, there's
But when I went, I felt like I was getting paid to go to school. It was a
right.
pretty incredible experience. Paid to be in plays. It was akin to. Very low pay to be in plays, but not the lowest pay I've ever gotten.
But it was legit,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There was something about 3 years on the boards that you can't trade that in for anything, the experience. Mm-hmm. And actually, I came to Detroit and spent a year, didn't get in the Hillberry the first time, spent a year taking classes and then re-auditioned. So it took me a year to get in.
Here, you took classes here in Detroit?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
At Wayne, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So then the second time I auditioned, made it into the company and was there for 3 years, and couldn't have been happier. Couldn't have been. I mean, it's a grind. It's a grind.
Mm-hmm.
You get out of there and you go, all you want to do is take a breath, and figure out something that isn't repertory theater. But at the same time, now I look at it and go, the training to be on stage for that much and switching out, it's an incredible gift.
The way I looked at Wayne when I was there, and I think it's a little different now, but
I understand it is.
the way that I felt about it was like, my favorite food is French fries, and I love French fries, but I don't know whether I could eat French fries every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and snacks. for 3 years.
Yeah.
After a while, you're like, no more French fries. So you do feel like, it's almost an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah, but at the same time, the Hillbilly taught me. I don't know whether it taught you, but it taught me the best actor I could be and the worst actor I
Yeah.
can be, which is all valuable knowledge.
That's a great way to put it. I totally agree. I think you get out of there going, okay, I'm skilled, I've got talent, I can do this. Now it's going to take me time to get rid of all the bad habits that I built, all the things that are shortcuts, that are going to get you there. A great training ground, but like anything, for that extended amount of time, you find your bag of tricks, and then you keep trying to sell that bag of tricks instead of going further and going, okay, now that you're out of school, be an actor. Good luck.
Yeah.
So, and it's funny, when I got out, I mean, I immediately started working commercially. So
let's talk about that. You found yourself doing more film, more on-camera work than theater work at first?
yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I booked my first Wendy's commercial while I was still at the Hillberry.
Wow.
And took a year. I mean, our son was born, and I took a year off basically after school to take care of him for a year, which can't be happy enough about. And I would take him as a baby to auditions,
Did they ever want to employ him too?
No, I wasn't going to take that risk. He was a great baby, right? So I would be handing him off to actors out there and going, just hold him for a second, I'll be right back.
And they were like, "Oh, whatever." Okay, cool. That's a great a good way to make friends.
It's a good
really.
community thing. It's like, oh, you got a dog, here's my baby.
Yeah.
And so I started working immediately commercially, voiceover stuff and industrials. Because at that time, industrials were the bread and butter in Detroit. I mean, you made a career out of it. So
Well, there was Ford, there was
Oh.
Chevy, General Motors.
The auto stuff was crazy. We were shooting at the time. I think we were, it was LA, New York for the amount of footage, and then Detroit was right there, and neck with Chicago off and on. And huge union town at the time, so commercially you could make a living at it. And I did that for a couple of decades. It was great, paid the bills. There was something about the work that was different. I will also say there was something about the work that at the end of that tenure of really wanting to work commercially, and don't get me wrong, I still want to work commercially, but it's not the focus anymore. It used to be.
Yeah.
Especially in my mid-20s, 30s, and 40s, the commercial work was totally the focus. I remember turning 40 going, can't do it anymore.
So what was it that you couldn't do? I mean, what had you had enough of?
I had enough of doing this. Sounds weird. I had enough of doing the same script for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
The material wasn't changing. It's still selling cars.
Yeah, it's like our car is the best. We talk to real people.
Well, and it's all of that, and I am so incredibly blessed to have had that career and thankful to be a part of that, and still am a part of that. But I remember talking to the agents and going, "Don't book me on any more industrials. I can't do it anymore. I can't." And
well, you
said, "What do you want to do?" And it's like, "I want to go back to theater."
Well, you started with this incredible grounding, and this someone sparked in you, from what I'm hearing, somebody sparked in you the desire to use theater and film to make change in the world, and not just like change like pocket change, not not like change like we're gonna. I used to have a terrible car, and now I have a great car. but change in much the way that maybe your dad did, which is changing people's hearts.
Well, it's a beautiful way to put it. And I think that there are certain things you look at and you go, okay, I gave my 30s, I gave my 40s, whatever it was, to this. I'm not going to give my 50s and 60s to this. And there's an aspect of looking at it creatively not being fulfilled anymore. And I would love to say altruistically, that it was all that. I think more than anything else, I just had hit the wall creatively going, I'm not creating anymore. I got to get back to creating. So that aspect of, I didn't go into it with the intent of giving back as much as going into it with the intent of being a part of something that I knew was valid. And, the world will tell us, and finance will tell us that theater isn't valid because it doesn't pay like everything else does.
Well, we like to judge things by how many zeros go
Yeah, right.
up against, the number sign of whatever arbitrary number we value things at.
Well, how many
right?
times have you gone, back home for a function or whatever it is, and people will say, well, what are you doing now?
Yeah, are you making money at this?
Yeah. What have we seen you at?
What else are you doing? Have you gone to Broadway yet?
Well, nobody but working actors knows what a hard thing that is to be a working actor.
Yeah.
And what an incredible accomplishment it is to be a working actor. And that has so little to do with a paycheck. That has to do with surviving in your world and being able to create a world that you want to have. That's, for me, that's where guts and courage live, is in that world of going, this is what I want to do, this is what I was meant to do. Not at the expense of anything else, but if you're given the ability to do it. And I mean, we talk about this in class all the time, and you and I have talked about this, If you're stupid enough to think that this is what you want to do, then follow through on it. But your career is going to be dumb luck. But it's the people that are prepared, once again, for the dumb luck that will have a career.
Yeah, I mean, this is the way I look at it, which is if you can picture yourself doing anything else, then do that, because theater is incredibly
So
difficult. And if you can be just remotely as happy doing something else, then do that. For me, I learned at a very young age how inept I was at everything.
At everything else, right.
I was like, I can't, I'm terrible at sales. I'm terrible at, building stuff. I'm not that great of an athlete, but by God, I can act. And
Well, it was funny when we were talking earlier, what basically gets you into the business and what got me into grad school was not wanting to get a real job. I'd gotten out of undergrad, and now it comes to that point where you go, okay, now you have to do something. I wasn't ready to do anything, and I really did not want a straight job at that point. So I thought, I'm going to continue my education because I know this is something I love. And in that aspect, could not be happier with grad school. Didn't necessarily use the degree until I got positioned here at OCC. So it never, the letters in front of or after your name don't help if you're not booking work.
yeah. Yeah, in fact, you were probably auditioning with people or against people who had no education whatsoever.
Oh, yeah.
And they were getting the job. And you weren't, there were times where, oh, yeah, I just thought this would be fun. And you're like, I got an MFA.
I know. I'm a big believer in. I'm a big believer in school, and I'm a big believer in not school.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're working, work.
Yeah.
The degree means nothing unless it means something for you, or that you put it on a job application in that case. But it's like I'm a big believer in education, not necessarily school. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's why I teach classes.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
Again, you know that you're making a difference in that kind of training because it's very specific. It's very actor oriented, and it gives us as actors a direction. I think more than anything else when we're lost, which is, in a sense, what I kind of think about theater in general anyway. It gives us a direction when we're lost.
Do you think that's why it attracts so many lost people? Or do you think it attracts lost people?
I think it definitely does. I don't think everybody,
Not everyone who wants to be an actor is lost, but I think a lot of lost people gravitate towards
but I go
theater
back
in a
to the
way.
expression, not all who wander are lost.
Yeah.
Do I think that it attracts a wide range of people, a majority or a percentage who are lost? Absolutely. Because the theater says, whatever you are, show up. We'll find something for you. We will absolutely find something for you. So when it comes to true actors, I think, the ones that I know, I mean, every once in a while you're going to come across an actor where you go, boy, they are lost as a human being, right? But for the most part, the ones that I have respect for and the ones that I get to work with, they get lost in the work. As human beings, they're not lost. They're absolutely rock solid bits of light. They just are. And they're just those kind of people that shine even brighter on stage, and you give them good material and all of a sudden you see stuff created that you've never anticipated before, and it's just a freaking glorious thing to watch.
No, that's you, man.
Oh, yeah, right.
That's you. So tell me more about, because you're still working in and you're still doing film. You might not recognize him here, but he was the senator in Batman v. Was it Batman v Superman?
Yeah.
Yeah, Batman v Superman. He was the senator, and that was really cool to see Dennis in that. And Dennis has done a ton of big name films and in smaller independent projects.
Yeah.
And what is it like being a Michigan actor and getting these roles, and how does a Michigan actor get these roles?
I was really fortunate because the incentive was going on when all these films were rolling through. And I have been, again, incredibly fortunate. Right place, right time for a lot of stuff. But I can honestly say that had I not, I think, given up a lot of the industrial stuff and the commercial stuff to go back on stage, had I not done that, I don't think the path would have opened up for the film stuff. And like I said, the film stuff, when Michigan had the incentive program going on, we were killing it. I mean, there were such good films coming through. So I was really fortunate enough to be on some really, really wonderful movies, big set stuff, which I never anticipated career-wise that was going to happen. And we hope, as a Michigan actor, you would hope that stuff would come around again. Unfortunately, I don't think it will, but I do think that the Midwest is still a great place to find a lot of work. But the Batman v Superman thing, kind of a interesting, weird story. I didn't even know that I had gotten the role.
What? I'm picturing, man, somebody just drove you to the studio.
Yeah.
Where am I? Oh, you're in this show now. Oh, what?
It's almost what it was. I had auditioned for something like 6 months, I guess, ahead of time before they started production, right? And my agent calls me up at the time and says, they're doing callbacks for the Batman Superman thing. Can you make it? I was in rehearsal at the time, and I said, I can't. I can't go make the audition. Which, again, you're looking at it going, I told my agent at the time, I said, once they start production, hopefully they will audition stuff that they're going to need for day players, and maybe I'll get in on that. So, agent says, not a problem, we'll keep you in the loop. So I get a call a couple of weeks back, or after that says, well, you're not going to believe this, you got cast in it. I said, I can't have gotten cast. I never auditioned for the movie. And they said, you did, you just didn't know you did. It was under a different name, like 6 months before that. Milo and Stitch or Milo and Sage, something like that. I never made the callback. I only made the one audition at the top. But Zack Snyder, the director, evidently liked me enough, and the studio liked me enough. It ended up being one of, if not the best role that a Michigan actor got out of the deal, because it was stretched out for the entire time period. But had I known all of that going on, I would have been scared to death going on the set for the first time. And I remember the first day on set, I'm sitting there, next to me, Jesse Eisenberg, we're in makeup, and he introduces himself, which cracks me up. I'm going, yeah, I kind of know who you are. And he said something that just was so genuinely beautiful at the time. He said, your first day? And I said, yeah, what about you? And he goes, yeah. And then he said, I am so nervous. I said, what are you nervous about? And he goes, I've never been on a film this big before. I'm really, really nervous about it. And I said, what are you playing? He said, Lex Luthor. And I'm going, dude, I'd be nervous too. But we ended up having such a great time on the film. We ended up talking New York theater more than anything else because he's a theater guy and a writer. But it was one of those things where, you do the work ahead of time, you put yourself out there, and hopefully good things happen. So for, I don't know, 3-4 years, I had a really great stretch of film stuff coming in, which I'm very, very grateful for. Now I find myself turning down more auditions than before, just because of the work schedule with production, theater seasons, which I'm not complaining about. I love it.
So you're the head of the theater program at OCC, and you've been the head of this theater program for how long?
Going a little over 11 years now.
11 years.
Which is another thing that I never thought that this gig would, in a million years, I mean, seriously, if somebody told me I'd be teaching, I'm going, yeah, right. They brought me in basically to run a film class at the time. So I did that, and then I started getting a couple more classes as adjuncts, and then my predecessor, really wonderful, Diane Hill, really wonderful mentor in this sense of what I do here, kind of approached me at the time and said, they're going to be looking for a spot. Is it something you'd be interested in? And I said, yeah, I think I really, really would.
Why?
Aging out of certain commercial things, and like we were talking about earlier, there were certain things I was done doing. And I looked at this as a straight job, and I had directed professionally before, some stuff at Tipping Point. You and I had worked on that, and Meadowbrook a couple of times, and you and I have worked there as actors. But when it was presented to me that I could head up a program and start directing consistently, that I didn't realize what a godsend that was at the time. Now I do. But to be able to head up a program, choose the seasons, and look at it honestly and go, okay, even if I take this gig for a decade, right, it's 10 seasons of getting to do whatever you want to direct. That's a gift. I mean, that's an absolute gift, and I have autonomy that way. So,
are you able to follow your curiosity in that way?
What do you mean?
Well, when I was director of theater at my school, it occurred to me that I could direct whatever I wanted, and it was kind of an amazing, revelation to me, because I was like, oh, well, what shows do I want to direct? And it's not like you can direct whatever you want, right? Because you're always constricted by your talent pool, your budget, how big of a or small of a cast you can work with, but within those constraints, I was always able to direct things that I was curious about, that I wanted to explore, rather than feeling like, well, I have to do this or else it's going to get butts in seats, or I need it to get butts in seats.
I've only had 1 or 2 shows my tenure here where I've looked at it and went, we got to do this, and usually they're bigger musicals. We got to do this to bring people in, and luckily they've been musicals that I've actually been endeared to. I am really fortunate in the sense of who I get to use. Since we are a community college, we are basically a community theater as well. So I'm blessed to be able to cast whoever auditions. And the talent pool, we've got great actors within the talent pool, but since we're a 2-year program, it's really hard to develop actors within the program. Most of the actors that come through here will get a shot on stage, but it's usually when they come back that the beautiful work really starts to happen. So I get to work with, I've hired equity actors in the past, I get to work with local professionals who, out of the graciousness of their hearts, just because they love to work, will donate their time. So we get a really great mix of equity, we get a great mix of professional, we get a great mix of community, and we get a great mix of student actors.
Do you find that's valuable to hire the professionals, whether they be non-equity, non-union professionals or equity professionals?
Yeah, and I have a ton of non-union professionals that come back to work, and it's valid in the sense that you have up-and-coming actors that you throw in the deep end and go, there you go, now you're working with the best. Good luck, step up, because I really believe it's like good talent forces other talent to be better.
Well, I think that for me, always the best training has been working with really professional actors and just watching everything that they do and just, taking, I mean, you can't follow them around to take physical notes, although I have, and much to their annoyance.
Yeah.
but just noting how they work, how they approach the role, how they show up on the first day, how they show up on the last day, and really learning from those actors
Well,
is invaluable.
I think it's invaluable as well. I mean, I think that there's an aspect of stealing from the best. Amateurs borrow, professionals steal. And it's like steal. Steal from what you're seeing them do. Steal from what you're seeing their commitment to the work. Steal everything that you possibly can. We talk a lot about that, especially in class, and particularly in film class. That we can run through a class. You can get through a term, and it's great, and you've learned a ton of stuff. But your real education is going to start your first day on set. That's when your education is going to actually start. Everything else is to give you a heads up for it. And it's the same thing about being on stage. Your education starts day one of rehearsal and watching the way other people work, and how professionals handle themselves and how they approach the work and when they come in off book, and they are there to support each other. They are there to make it about the other person. They are there to be a part of something bigger. The worst experiences I've ever had on stage are working with people who have made the theater about themselves, as opposed to something much, much bigger. So, I mean, I look at, and I think it's tough because I think as a community college, and you know this from working in schools as well, there is certain kind of handle or moniker that's put on schools. And we are something different. We're a bit of a hybrid in the sense that we are a community school and a community college based on certain campuses, 2 campuses in particular. One, we're shifting to Royal Oak at this point. But the work we do, I've said it in the past, and I will continue to say it. I will put our work up against any equity theater in Michigan. I would do that. I mean, our talent is that good. Our productions are that good. The dedication of our actors, it's that strong. So it's one of those things where it's like I encourage people to see theater any place that they can. And especially if you come to see our stuff, you're going to see some phenomenal work. You're going to see some phenomenal actors, and hopefully some shows that you haven't seen in a while.
Yeah, because you're, as I was saying earlier, you're not necessarily so hamstrung by whether or not you're whether or not you're going to fill the house.
Yeah.
And B, whether or not you're going to tick off your audience base, which I find in quite a few and you can correct me if you feel that I'm wrong or whatever, but I do feel like there are theaters here who are kind of terrified of their audience in that sense, where even just one or two people write in and say, "How dare you do that?" and then they never do shows of that character again because they just don't want to deal with it. And my feeling is if people are coming in and painting swastikas on your set, then you're doing something. Actually, you're doing something right.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
That if people are mad at you for doing this show, if they're really like passionate, like they corner you and go, "How dare you do this show?" Then your answer should be, "That's so great that you're passionate about what we're doing. Thank you for your passion. Why don't you come and be passionate some more other shows?" Because rarely do they never show up again. Usually people who are like filled with that much passion about a show are your friends, and they pay for tickets in spite of themselves.
Oh, totally agree. I mean, I look at the stuff that, I am very fortunate in the sense that I'm given a budget that is not reliant on, filling out the house. Our houses have consistently gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. So that's not an issue and continues to not be an issue. Are there certain shows that I would not put up? Yeah, but those are for personal reasons, where I look at it and I go, either we couldn't pull it off or the material's just too much. There are other shows that I look at and you know how that is. You know, you wait for the right set of actors to come along.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're going into production right now. We just started production of The Shape of Things, Neil LaBute.
And Neil LaBute is a tough playwright.
Yeah, right? You know,
Yeah.
and people have very strong opinions one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
This is an alumni production, so I'm bringing back 4 people that have gone through the program. They're all working actors.
And they're local.
And they're local. They're all rock stars. And so we've just started production again for this, which goes up at the end of January. But I'm looking at that going, this is one of those shows, again, that even we had our table read the other night, even the discussion around the table with the cast.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people are firing up about a bunch of different stuff, and you go, this is what you want. You want the audience to walk away with a challenged perspective. You want them to walk away going either total villain or total hero. You know, you want them to walk away with a reason to go, what did you think?
Mm-hmm.
And good material is going to do that. Challenging material is going to do that, and great actors are going to do that as well.
What are you getting out of being a teacher that you didn't get out of being just an actor or just a director professionally?
It's funny. I'm getting the desire to get back on stage more than I ever have before, and I mean that honestly in the sense that I get to work with such good actors that it makes me want to be on stage with them.
Uh-huh.
You know, what I get out of directing, there's obviously an aspect of control involved.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's an aspect of creative vision that's involved. There's an aspect of going back to what you said earlier, following your curiosity. There's a payment involved with that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a real payback to taking something and looking at it going, what can we make out of this? And again, because I'm a big believer that the show you start out with, the show you start to produce is not the show you're going to end up with. And it rarely should be. The one that you start to produce is going to lead you to the one that's going to need to be.
Well, I think I was talking about this last week with James Cool, which is, you know, theater's an ensemble art.
Oh,
and
gosh, yeah.
and if you as a director are so attached to your idea, your vision, then you're going to constrain your show to the point of killing it.
I agree.
You know?
Yeah, it's funny. I always tell my designers ahead of time, it's like, be ready, because 2 weeks into rehearsal and maybe even 2 weeks out before we open, if the show is demanding something, we're going to go with what the show needs. And I believe that you learn that as you go along. I mean, your job as a director, and you know this, I mean, your job as a director is like, if you've got great actors, is to set up this playground where really great actors can do their thing. You know, give them parameters and set it up and say, well, I think this, you may want to consider this. Rarely, because I mean, personally, it's like, I don't like giving actors what they should do in the sense of what I would do as an actor, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I tend to try, at least, and I've been fortunate that way, tend to try to suggest. Go, well, if you're going to go that way, what about this? Or tell me why you're doing that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately it's the actor on stage. They're the ones who are putting everything on the line at that point. Directors are the most useless people in the world on opening night when it comes down to it. It's like, we're done. You know, we are absolutely
And for
done.
me as a director, it's also the most terrified
Yeah,
I am is on opening night, because I'm like, I can't do anything. I'm stuck, right?
There have been times where I sit, you know, and generally I sit in the back on opening night where you just want to yell, no, that's not what we worked on, right?
Follow my direction!
Yeah, right. But I think that there's an aspect of, the same as an actor, you know, there's an aspect of giving yourself over to something to see where the creation takes you. As a director, I think that's a little bit more heightened, at least it's been so in my experience, of going into stuff with a great deal of faith, looking at it going, I don't know what it's going to end up being. All I know is that it's asking to be created. And if we don't do it, somebody else will do it. And we say this all the time in our space. You know, opening night, we always say, nowhere in the world is anybody doing this show. I mean, they may be doing this production of this script, but they are not doing the show that we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
nowhere in the world, you know. And that's something that's just wonderfully ethereal and ephemeral about the process, is that it exists when everybody in the house sees it, and then it's gone. It's just done.
You can't even see it on tape. Like
No,
if somebody records it,
No. I get people asking me that all the time. Well, did you record it? Can I see it? And it's like, no, it's worthless. It's in my opinion, absolutely worthless. Unless you're going to do a 3-camera shoot, you know, and have a production.
Even then, you know,
it's still you're not seeing the entire picture all at once.
It's not like film. Film is intended to be seen on a screen.
Well, and film tells you this is where we want you to focus. This is where we want you to look, right? All the reactions happen in the edit. That's where the film gets made. But on stage, it's like there's nothing to hide from. You're watching the entire thing, and you're watching the audience watch it. So there's an aspect. I mean, going back to that, the ethereal quality. I mean, there are moments that I can bring up and bring myself to tears when I remember what an actor did on stage. You know, whether it's a line reading or a look or a discovery or whatever it is, and I can get myself crying like a wee baby over the fact that that creative process is so strong. And truth was told in a way that hasn't been told before. And I mean, I think in so many ways, back to your original question about what do you get out of it as a director, what I get out of it is that creative process of somehow finding the truth at that moment, with whatever it is, you know, that we're going to tell the truth. And we should be in love with the truth, and we should look at each scene and go, what is the truth of this scene? You know, not what's entertaining about the scene, what's the truth? You know, and stick with the truth. You can't go wrong.
Well, I always say, you know, especially in answer to people like, you're good at lying because you're an actor. You know, actors are so good at lying. And I'm like, I am a terrible liar. I tell the truth for a living. Lawyers lie for a living.
Yeah, right?
I tell the truth
that's good.
for a living. And it's hard for people to wrap their mind around it because actors do tell the truth for a living. It's an imagined truth. Sometimes it's a truth that doesn't actually exist, that isn't real, but there's a difference between being real and being true. And that's what we're drawn to, right?
I think that's what we should be drawn to. I think that for a lot of us, that's absolutely the bottom line is, you know, we get to fall in love. We get to, you know, show anger. We get to earn the right to kill somebody on stage. We get to, you know, earn the right to do all of these things if we're doing it in a truthful way. And I think, you know, we're taught so completely in so many ways to ignore the truth. We're taught so completely in so many ways not to be the problem, not to cause problems, not to look for controversy. But as actors and directors especially, it's like we got to look at it and go, no, where's the conflict? Let's find the conflict, you know. Let's deal with the conflict, because once again, that's where the truth is at. Good material does that. I mean, as an example, we finished last season a production of All My Sons, which was just an incredible success, production-wise, audience-wise, and specifically actor-wise. And we deal with that I deal with that play in our Intro to Theater class about whether or not it's still relevant, you know. And people, we will go through that production, and people who read that play in class, who are not theater people, right? And at that point, I'm looking at it going, that's fine. You don't have to be a theater person. It's all art appreciation at this point. But theater or non-theater people reading that play and looking at it and being so taken by it and saying, is it relevant? It's like, yeah, it could have been written 45 minutes ago.
That always kind of, I like that, but I'm also ticked off by it.
Why so?
Well, for example, we did a production of Children's Hour, and it infuriates me.
On my short list of plays.
Yeah,
so it's like, I love that play.
It's a wonderful play.
Yeah.
The third act is just amazing.
It's
Don't
great.
rush it. But I would say it's also infuriating that it's still so relevant. It's so relevant, and there's still so much that a modern audience can look at and go, that's my life. That's happening for me right now.
Even if it's gender issues, absolutely, but even the aspect of just where does a lie take us?
What kind of damage can a lie do?
What kind of damage can a lie do? You know, and you look at it and you go, it can be national, it can be statewide, it can be global. But we're in that world where one lie. I mean, you look at social media, you look at the way disinformation is used. You know, you look at it and you go, it's a dangerous world. I mean, it really, really is. Which, going back to the art of what we do, why it's so, once again, important to tell the truth.
Thank you, Dennis. I
My
think
pleasure.
that's a great way to end it, I think. And thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for this.
I'd love to do it again at some point.
Yeah.
Again, if you liked this video, please subscribe right now. Push the button and hit subscribe. Also like and share this with everyone you've ever known, know right now, and will ever know for the rest of your life. That would be very, very appreciated. Again, this is Michigan Theater and Film Talk. Dennis North works at Orchard Ridge, or he works at OCC, and your main office is in Royal Oak, right?
Production is all shifted to Royal Oak.
Royal
Main
Oak.
office is here, but check us out. Yeah, our productions are in Royal Oak.
Yeah, so if you, where can someone find you and find the productions that are?
Go to the OCC website, search out theater, it's there. Eventbrite we're on as well. And yeah, please check us out. Come and support live theater. We so appreciate it.
Yes, and you can find me on www.michigancheckoff.com or www.jefftamakis.com, as well as all those other places I mentioned at the beginning of the video. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you guys later.